Hello, welcome to another episode of the Sim Sundays podcast. I was about to say which episode we're on. Sure, I think we're up to like maybe 60 now, 60 something, late 50s. I'm not sure. It's been a lot. It's been nearly over a year of recording this podcast, which is a bit mind-blowing. And right at the beginning of the podcast, I did have some concerns. I was wondering, are we going to be able to get enough guests to be able to fill out a full year's calendar, having a different guest every week? But it's actually been surprisingly easy. There's a lot of very interesting people working in and around sim racing, and this week is no exception. So this week I spoke to Jorrit from Simracing Center. Now, I love these types of episodes because I'm talking to somebody who is a genuine founder. They've created Simracing Center from nothing with a few mates, came up with an idea, and are now running a very successful sim racing business. If you haven't seen it before, check it out at Sim Racing Center. They sell setups and coaching packs and strategy guides, which is an interesting one. And they've got big plans for the future. And I really enjoyed talking to him about how he started and the challenges that he's faced along the way, and how he's kind of learned how to create this digital first product in sim racing. So enjoy. Okay, this is the Jorrit podcast, take 74. Jorrit, are you with me? Do you read me?
I read you, and I'm happy to get this show on the road.
So this is day 2 of our podcast recording session. Yesterday, the tech was not on our side, which is ironic, really, given that we both work in tech.
Yes.
How are you, sir?
Sometimes it just doesn't want to work. I'm doing great. Excited to get this podcast on the road, and looking forward to the questions.
Oh, well, there's many hard-hitting questions. This is I'm a pretty hard-hitting journalist. It's thoroughly planned out. I've got this conversation mapped to expose the weaknesses.
Should have had some PR training, maybe then.
Yeah, you really should. Okay, so for those who don't know, tell us about your sim racing startup, your sim racing venture, the organization that is, of course, Simracing Center.
So Simracing Center is all about making you faster. This is through the F1 game, on iRacing and ACC as well. And we do this in various ways, with ways such as coaching by real esporters, esports engineers, but also through setups, race preparations, and live race engineers that help you throughout your race. So we offer everything to help you become better.
Nice. I've been looking around your website quite a lot in the last 48 hours now, obviously in preparation for our conversation. And obviously setup shops exist. There's a few out there to choose from, but one thing that I did see on yours which really interests me was the race preparations. How did that come about? Was that something that people were asking for?
Yeah, so most of the things on Simracing Center are built on demand, like you say, indeed. It's something that we want to offer the full package, where the driver only has to really focus on doing the driving. And if you get the setups and the race preparations, it works really well with each other. The race preparations, they are done with the setups, so the data is quite accurate to what you're going to drive with. And basically, when you have those setups, you don't have to think about how you're going to set up the car. When you have those race preps, you don't have to think about the strategy. It's just there on your screen. And that's just super nice. It really removes a lot of stress and thinking about what to do in the race, because you've got it all laid down there.
Yeah.
On your second screen. So
well, I'm really
it's basically a script of your race.
Nice. Well, I'm really interested to go into that a little bit deeper and find out exactly how you kind of create these strategies and what sort of maths or testing is involved. And the same with the setups as well. It'd be good to go into that. But first, take us all the way back. Take us all the way back to the time before Simracing Center. What were you doing? How much sim racing were you doing? And then tell us about the point at which you decided, you know what, I think the sim racing world needs something more. It needs Simracing Center.
Yeah, so it's quite an interesting story. It all started off with my love for motorsport growing around 2016, getting into Formula One at that time, which is quite late. And that got me into karting. And I was going to do karting at a higher level, at an academy, and all of that, all of the good stuff, And then COVID hit. And COVID was a time where I gave up my karting career for sim racing and absolutely fell in love with sim racing. Met a lot of people online, a lot of great people. One of the first people that I met were Luke Smith and Jona Martens. Luke Smith currently being an Alpine eSports driver, Jona Martens currently being the Ferrari eSports engineer, former McLaren engineer, and they won the championship in 2022. So at the time, we all of us three, we weren't in the competitive scene yet. Luke was just a good driver. Jona was just somebody that knew a lot about the game. And through time, we all really found our own path, our own way throughout the Formula One league racing and esports world. Really, Luke got signed by an academy team. Jona Martens started learning more and more and more about the game, and everybody started growing their network. And at the time, I was a software development student. I didn't really like my school, and at school we didn't really do much. It wasn't really challenging. So at school time, I was finding a way to make myself productive. And in that time, I did a lot of sim racing. I had a lot of races, and in those races, I had no idea how to make a setup. But I had Jona, I had Luke. They knew the game through and through. They always had a setup for me, but they weren't always available. And so I always had to ask them, do you have a setup for me? And hope that they were online. So for me, I was like, all right, I kind of just want to make like a database full of setups, I just want to have them always ready on the go. And also in my races, I was always like, well, I do like practicing for the race, but I don't know that much about the Formula One game. What are the strategies? I have no idea. I would always ask Jona, can I have a setup? And what's the strategy for tonight's race? And I felt like there were a lot of people, I felt like there must have been a lot of people that were struggling with this issue too. So, and I couldn't find anywhere to get this. And basically, like, I was happy to pay for it, and I couldn't find any service that provided it. So I decided, well, I've got these great guys with me. Let's do this together and build it up together and offer this service to the public. And that's what we did. In November 2021, Luke Smith and I started gathering setups, and that's where the base of Simracing Center was made. Not knowing how much it was going to explode back then. It was going to be a subscription service at first. Then it became a one-time purchase thing, and we brainstormed about the many ways that we were going to market it, put it on a website, in the Discord, everything. We had big brainstorm sessions. And in end of January 2022, after a little bit of success already, seeing some demand from some customers, we got legally registered, and that's where stuff got serious. And in that time, we started up the coaching side as well. That coaching side was a bit funny, that story. It's because at the time I knew a lot about the game myself too, because of Jona, who taught me a lot. And I engineered for Haydon, Gullis, and Thibaut Courtois at the time. So I knew a lot about the game. I knew how to get quicker as well. And at that time, I was pretty quick at the game myself too. So I offered myself as a Fiverr coach, got booked, however, got COVID. And then the first day out of lockdown, that's when the client scheduled with me. And we were going to go out with the guys and like celebrate that we were out of lockdown. So there I was with a split decision: go out with the guys or coach somebody on the F1 game. And that's where it kind of hit me. And I sent Luke a message: I've got this guy who wants to be coached. I think you're a great guy for it. would you like to coach him? Luke said, yes, great, let's do it. And I spent a lot of time with the guys and had some fun. And Luke had a great session with the client, and the client absolutely loved it. After the night out, I asked the client and Luke, like, how was it? Luke said, amazing. I do this for free. I was like, that's not gonna happen, unfortunately. And then the client said it was amazing. I became so much quicker within 1 hour. Can I come back next week? And then when he said, can I come back next week, I was like, all right, we're making this a thing. So the same night, and I had some drinks already, the same night, I stayed up all night. I made a web shop. I think I literally made a web shop until sunrise, after a night out.
That is impressive. That's some serious commitment.
And that, yeah, I was like, I gotta capitalize on this. Like, this is an opportunity. I gotta like make the most out of this. And from there, it went really well. There was demand, there was customers, and we just optimized. From there, it was just optimizing and optimizing and optimizing. More setups, more options. And then we went from the option system to a system where there were safe setups versus eSports setups instead of like options, because people were struggling to find like, okay, what's the right option for me? So we made an easy option and a harder to drive, but if you get it right, it's good option basically. And that worked really well. We have setup support. We built that where basically when you have access to all setups, you can always ask in the setup support channel for a new one, a custom tailor-made one, so that you always have the right setup, basically. So that's basically the thing. Like, you don't only get the setups, you also get the setup support where you ensure that you always have the right setup, basically.
That's interesting. So you do a one-off payment, but you still get support and custom setups whenever you want them.
Exactly. So it's a one-time payment where you're not paying only for the setups, you're paying to ensure that you always have the right setup.
That's interesting.
Without a doubt. So that's basically that. And that system worked really well. And we basically saw that we could do the same, but with race preparations. So we have the race preparations in the channels, the Discord channels, and we also have a race preparation support channel, so that always you get the support that you need. And we got coaches and data gatherers that basically man the support channels and answer any questions that our customers have.
Pretty comprehensive. Okay, so let's talk about what it was like starting a business that presumably has to support you in some way. So beforehand, I was looking earlier at your LinkedIn, as I always do. And you worked at Domino's, and then you worked at a go-kart track, and then it was Simracing Center. Like, how have you found the actual building of the business? So not Simracing Center and what it offers. That's, obviously that sounds great, but like, how have you found the process of building a business and then maintaining it and then dealing with complaints? And obviously you have a team now. Like, where did you learn these skills, or has it just been something that you've developed as you go along?
So this actually goes way back. Like you said, I worked at Domino's, and that has been a very very good experience for me, because that was my first job ever. And I think I was 15 at the time, and my mom told me, like, you need to get a job. And I was a typical 15-year-old saying, no, I don't want a job. I don't want to work. I want to spend time with friends. I want to game. I want to do this. And then finally she convinced me. I got a job as a delivery driver at Domino's, and I absolutely loved it. And that became a huge problem, because I loved it so much. At 16 years old, I got the promotion to become the shift manager over there. And there I was managing stubborn 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds even, that work at Domino's, that will not take anything from a 16-year-old managing the team. And over there, I really learned how to deal with stress, deal with people that do not want to do stuff for you, but still you need to get stuff done from them. I learned to manage stuff. I learned it was such a good experience, and I learned so much that at a young age, at 16 years old, I got that promotion and that role to a lot of responsibility. Basically, it was very odd because I was the youngest there doing that. So that was a very good experience, and that really carried over to starting Simracing Center, where I wasn't afraid to take risks. I know with full confidence what was going to work, what was not going to work. I knew how to manage people. I knew like how to keep the team happy, and that was just a great journey as well. Like it really brought me back to that good old Domino's time where I was learning a lot. And starting something like that, you need to learn a lot from legal side to graphic design side.
You kind of have to do a bit of everything,
at the start,
right?
At the start, you're the one doing everything. There's not when you're like starting up and you're basically doing it from square zero. There's not really much budget to have people do it for you. Right now, we can afford lawyers, we can afford graphic designers, all of that. So I don't have to do it anymore. But at that time, I had to make up the terms of service myself. I had to create the product images myself. I had to develop the website. I had to do marketing. I had to do the social media myself.
What was the hardest part?
And I think that social media is really hard because it's super time consuming. It's a lot harder than you think. Setting up like the process and optimizing the process is something that just took a lot of work, but it wasn't necessarily hard because I knew like exactly what to do. I knew like, okay, this is what we need, and this is what we need to make the customer journey better, etc., etc. However, doing social media is something that was so like time consuming. Like you're busy with other stuff, and then you're like, oh yeah, crap, I need to do social media stuff, because otherwise, without good social media, a business doesn't exist. It's honest, that's how it is at this time. So I think that's one of the first people, aside from the coaches, that we hired was social media manager. And aside from that, what also was hard was doing customer service, because we didn't have much complaints, basically zero actually. But when an order was placed, all I had to do was give a certain Discord role to the person that placed the order. However, you want to have the quickest fulfillment time, but you're not always available. Let's say I went to the cinema. And I was in the dark for 2 hours, and then after the movie, I opened my phone. Like, crap, we got orders. People been waiting for 2 hours. So yeah, that's also a position that's created itself, and we immediately hired Bart, who from the start has been amazing with fulfilling orders. He pioneered the customer service team in Simracing Center, and we're now a team of 4, basically ready to fulfill orders in any time zone, any time of the day, all taking shifts, basically. So that is something that needed like people real quick. And aside from that, legal stuff, that's something that you can do, and it's not really like time bound. Like social media and customer service, that's like where you need to be like quick with and stuff. So that's something, those are the first positions really that opened up themselves.
Yeah, I mean, building a business when you first start, it's like there's that classic poster where you've got the little man at the bottom of the mountain, and he thinks he can see the peak of the mountain,
but actually when he gets to that peak, there's a bigger peak behind it, and then a bigger
Yeah,
peak behind
yeah,
it, and that is kind of exactly
exactly.
what building a business is like, especially in sim racing, because it's a brand new industry. It's not like you're opening,
Yeah.
I don't know, like a car garage or a hairdresser's or a cafe where
Mm-hmm.
you can look at an example of a well-run cafe and be like, great, I need to imitate this and put
Exactly.
my own spin on it.
Exactly.
Like, not many people do have businesses in sim racing, and so there isn't really an established way to
Yeah,
go
there's
about it.
there's not really an example to look at, and that's something that was indeed really hard. We had to come up with things ourselves, which was fun. That's the challenge of
Mm.
it. But yeah, there isn't really an example to look at, and also the industry is still quite small. It's growing a lot. It's growing really, really well, the sim racing industry, and you can really see that in the numbers. But I think there's still an incredible amount of potential for sim racing that is not released yet. However, we've seen with ESL R1 this year what you can reach with sim racing. I think that was a very good showcase of what sim racing can be and can go towards. It was very well run.
I agree. I think ESLR1 and SRO, the scale at which they are growing
Yeah,
sim racing is absolutely nuts. Now, you focus primarily, I think it's fair to say, on Formula One, but I can see on the website that you have
correct.
iRacing services and you have ACC services, but Formula One is kind of the biggest one. Now, my
Yeah.
question is, the game comes out once a year, so the game is very much subject to kind of periods of boom and bust. So
Mm-hmm.
historically, we've seen a boom at launch and then it's petered out because people are furious about the quality of the game. This year it seems to
Yes.
be it seems to be different. It seems to be a lot better, but you're still going to
Yeah.
experience a huge boom at the beginning, straight after the launch of the game, and then it peters off throughout the year. So, I guess in terms of your business model, you must be quite conscious that you're expecting to do probably 50% of your revenue in the first 25% of the year. How do you manage that?
So it's something that we know indeed is the case. And the thing is, we grow every year, our customer base grows every year, and we see that a lot of customers are happy with us and buy again with us each year. Um, it is true that most of the sales, most of the traffic is when that game releases, because obviously there's the most hype. The people that want to get it immediately, and then the rest of the year, most of the sales are people that just get to know us and go, "Oh shit, this is cool. Uh, gotta order there." So that's throughout the year. It's mostly people discovering us and going, "Okay, this is cool. Ordering from here." And at the game release, we have the existing customers that know about us already, just ordering again because they enjoyed it last year, basically.
And what about physics updates? So if you get an update to the model and the way the car's handles changes throughout the life cycle of the game, how
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
do you then bring out a version 2 that people pay for, or do you update the ones that's already been bought? Like, that seems like a tricky one to manage.
It is a very tricky one to manage, and we don't really like it. Physics
Stop it, EA.
updates are super. Yeah, they're very annoying because we let our customers pay one price and one price only, and that price, you get the setups, you get the setup support, and that's like you're done for the year. You don't have to think about it anymore. So we do not charge extra for physics updates because it's not in our customers' control when physics updates happen. However, we do have to invest time and money, and the entire team needs to regather the entire setup line.
Which must take a long, like, how long does it take? So here we go. So when the
It
new
it
game comes out, presumably it's all hands on deck. Everyone goes out, drives, develops these setups, and at some point you decide, okay, we're happy that these setups are at the quality that we want them to be. Done. Like, how long does
yeah.
it take you to do a full set of setups?
Basically, so how we do it is we gather a baseline first, and that is something. So we have an entire team of coaches, setup developers, data gatherers, and that is managed by a branch manager. That branch manager is Jona Martens, and he's been doing a great job at it. So it could take around a week for us to basically have everything.
Is that how long it took us?
And that is quite
23?
quick.
So
For F1, yeah, we had them already somewhere stored, but we couldn't publish them before the game launched. So basically, we had the baselines, we got them published basically straight away. So people that had early access could drive with our developed setups. However, at the early stage, we started with a baseline, and there you go. There are the setups basically. However, in those early stages of the game, when everybody plays it, new things get discovered with brake bias, with whatever, like new metas get discovered. So the setups are like very intensively updated constantly, and you'll see that weekly, or maybe sometimes like 2 times a week, you'll see an updated setup, or maybe every setup gets updated because they found something else. So that is something that the setup team does completely by themselves. They look at the setups and go like, okay, what needs work? They also so we have the setup support channel, but there's also like a setup talk channel where people can just chat about it. It's a chat with everybody that has the setups. And basically, if we ever get somebody saying like, oh, I don't like this setup, it gets looked at immediately, and the setup developers will go, okay, maybe we'll need to make a new one, or maybe it needs some changes, basically. All just to make sure that we have the most up-to-date and meta good setups, basically.
Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense, and I feel like customers would probably understand that after the launch of a game, when all of a sudden you've got hundreds of thousands of people testing, the testing is going to be a lot more thorough. So another question: you work in an industry that is very, very difficult to track, and what I mean by that is the products that you are selling is essentially like a set of numbers. So if I decide that I want to buy the full set of your setups and then publish them to our Discord, then I've just given those away for free for like 2,000 people. Like, now clearly that makes me a very, very bad person in this example. But how do you manage that risk?
It is tough. We have seen it happen, and we are allowed to take legal action for it. We have lawyers that have looked at the terms of service and gone like, okay, this is what we need to change in it. And it is made very clear to people that buy with us that it is strictly not allowed to share those setups. And what we notice most of the times is that when those setups get shared, there will be somebody coming to us with, hey, your setups are getting shared. And when those setups are getting shared, it is very, very easy to track who is the root of the leak, basically. And then we can easily address them and take legal action.
And has that happened in the past?
We have only noticed minor leaks. We've been very, very polite. We have the power to take legal action, and it would hurt the person doing the leaking. But I am a pretty nice guy. I don't want to. I don't want to do that. However, if you're gonna do it at a big scale, yeah, I'm sorry. There's gonna be like legal action taken, but when it's on small scale, most of the time we just contact them, we talk it out, and we fix the issue, and it gets sorted. we like to solve it that way because we don't want to ruin somebody with the legal action that we're allowed to take, because the setups are part of our intellectual property. And when you share that, it is very illegal.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So let's moving on then. Obviously, setups exist in a lot of games in sim racing. Nearly every game I can think of has some form of setup, some more comprehensive than the other.
Even FIFA has custom tactics.
Even FIFA, yeah. So that leads me on to my next question, which is, at the moment you're providing setups for F1. Do you intend to expand to things like ACC and iRacing? And if
that is indeed something in the works. We currently have a ACC Setup on Demand product. The ACC team is currently being developed behind the scenes. It's a bit smaller than the Formula One team. The Formula One team is quite large, but we have some ACC coaches, setup developers. We currently have the on-demand setup product where anybody can just ask, I need the setup, and within 24 hours you'll have that setup. It's subscription based, opposing to one-time purchase based, but soon we will also, just like the Formula One product line, we will also have a ACC setup database with the tracks that are relevant, basically. And then we plan on later, and that's something we haven't dived into yet because that's quite a large product, is iRacing setups as well. So that's all to come in the future.
And it must be a difficult one. So in terms of, businesses often get evaluated as scalable or not scalable. And I feel like your F1 product, it's kind of, you build one product every year and then you can sell it throughout the year, and you can market it in different ways, do collaborations, partnerships, affiliate schemes, etc., and sell that throughout the year. With ACC, it's a bit different because obviously all the cars will require different setups rather than there being just one. So all of a sudden it's not 1 times the number of tracks, it's like 20 times the number of tracks. And then in iRacing, you've got 40 times 150, and then in terms of like each track has got, in iRacing. So oh my goodness, I'm getting PTSD just thinking about this. But for Grid Finder, I built a database of every track on every racing game and every variation of that track. So I have so in the data row, you have the track name, the variation name, the length of the track, the country the track is in, the nearest city to the track, a track map which has been made transparent so that we can use that around the site, and then track images. And this is all for features coming quite soon on Grid Finder.
How long did that take
4,000, right? So it's enormous, right? And it took me about 3 weeks, Monday to Friday, probably Monday to Sunday, to be honest, from like 9 until 6, 7 in the evening every day.
Wow. What an effort.
I mean,
Come on.
That was, well, thank you very much. That was, it was a horrible, dark period of my life that I don't want to talk about anymore, but it's done. And
gotta give this man some praise for that, because holy moly, that is a lot of work.
My point is, if you start making setups for iRacing, obviously a setup for the short version of a track is going to be different to the long version. And so in the number of products that you have to make, in terms of the amount of hours per product, it's a lot higher. Because you would need somebody to do every variation, and then every car, because it could be an open wheel, it could be a Formula V, or it could be a GT3, or it could be a Formula One. Like the number of expert, and because there's so many, like somebody looking for a setup of that variation of the track on that particular car is going to be on average a fraction of the number of people who are just looking for an F1 setup.
Exactly, it's a lot tougher, and that's why we haven't dived into it yet. For Formula One, like anybody that plays the Formula One game and is really good at it knows how to make a setup, and boom, done. iRacing, you've got people that only drive maybe GTs. I have no idea how a Formula car works. So to assemble a team for iRacing is such a bigger challenge. than just Formula One. And ACC is also a big challenge to gather all of it, but iRacing is such a huge challenge. You need such a big team who all have their own expertise on it. And the thing is, I have a great network within the Formula One space. So for me, it's very easy to gather people that, know a lot about Formula One. It's very easy for me to get in contact with eSports drivers or engineers or team managers, whatever. But for iRacing, my network isn't that big. So that also makes it a lot harder for me to expand into that iRacing space. And the way we solve that is by appointing a branch manager, and that branch manager, with his network, with his experience, will be able to appoint people to certain things and plan out what setups are being made, etc.
Yeah.
But that is a future project. It's gonna be very time consuming, but I can't wait to start with it because that's gonna be very exciting.
Yeah, last year we spoke to a guy called Jeff McConey, and Jeff McConey has a setup shop called McConey Setup Shop, and it's for iRacing, but it's specifically for dirt racing. So which is a very, very niche. And then so it was dirt first, then now it's oval racing, and then he's just started to creep into some GT3 cars. That's like one or two of them, but
it's a process, really.
It's a huge process, and it's going to be interesting to watch how that grows, and how, for you especially, how the kind of the workload grows as you now have multiple different teams to run. But it sounds, it sounds incredibly exciting, especially given that a lot of those engineering setups, I imagine, will end up becoming your coaches as well, for the coaching service that you offer.
A lot of times it is the coaches doing the setup gathering and stuff, except for data gatherers. We have that's sometimes done by engineers.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's nice to be able to have like a holistic product. So if you're like, right, you know what, for whatever reason in my life I've got a lot of time coming up and I really want to get good at F1, it's nice to be able to go, okay, I can get my setup, and I can get my coaching, and I can get my data. And then the bit I want to talk about next is the strategy guides. How much testing or maths or process, is there some kind of spreadsheet that you've got where you put in the track and you put in some data and it spits out the strategy, or is it just trial and error?
This is raw testing. Obviously, within F1, there's some things that you know already and you can take account of. But this year, Badgerman's been the man on the race preps. He's a guy that knows so much about the Formula One game, like an incredible amount. He's been taking care of the race preps. What we did this year, opposing to last year, is that last year we had a team doing it. That worked. We had the race preps quicker. However, we saw that when you're doing it in a team, everybody has their own philosophy about it. So it differed a little bit sometimes, like how the race preps were filled in. But basically how we do it is we have a template, and that template is carefully made together. Like what do you need to know before your race? Like you need to know your strategy, and then there's stuff in there such as the ERS usage on the track, how much your tires get worn, the safety car windows, like if you get wing damage lap 1, what do you need to do? Like stuff like that's in there. And this year we've assigned Badgerman with the role to take care of all the race preparations, and it is a tough job. And Badgerman has been absolutely grinding the game, testing over again to make sure that those race preps get posted into the channel. So it's a product that takes so much longer to create, opposing to the setups, because the setups is just a little bit driving, fine-tuning, and all of that. Of course, a lot of testing, but not as much testing as the race preps, because for race preps, you need to do full runs. You need to do full runs, and not only once, you need to do full runs with hard stints, medium stints, wet stints, like there's so much to be tested. and there's so much tracks. So it is a lot of work. So hats off to Badgerman for doing all of that work.
That is incredible. Now, there's a couple of AI products that are coming out for setups and coaching. You've got Track Titan and Trophy.ai, both of whom have these on-screen kind of directions and guidance that say, right, you've got damage, pit now, or, you know, take a better line here, or whatever it is, or, you know, you go and do some laps and it says, tweak this, tweak that, tire pressure's here, front wing there. What's your take on the AI alternative when it comes to setups and coaching?
I think AI is pretty cool. However, I like to keep it human. I like it when there's an expert that has said, yes, this is correct. Yes, this is good. Instead of a computer taking raw data and then spitting it out. It can work, and it may work really well. And that's very good. However, I like it where it's been checked by an expert, somebody who has spent or whose life is dedicated to getting knowledge about the Formula One game, and that it's been checked by a person like that. That just gives me so much more confidence than a computer telling you what to do.
Yeah, and I guess one of the interesting variables in racing that makes it difficult for AI to compete is people's personal preferences for driving style.
Exactly.
So you know, maybe in the futures, you potentially they could develop something where they watch you drive and then identify what your preferences are. But I think that'd be pretty difficult. But I guess your coaches can, if somebody says, I like this setup, but actually it's a bit pointy for me, there's stuff you can do.
Yeah, that's what we have the setup support for, and also the coaching sessions. The setup support, anybody can say anything about the setup, and if they want to change, they'll have a tailor-made change. And if they're really struggling in a coaching session, you literally have an hour with an eSports person, so there's no doubt that they'll fix whatever the problem is. Maybe it's even something in your brake pedal, maybe it's something in your steering wheel or a setting. They'll even help you with that. It's anything that will make you faster, they will help you.
Yeah. So it's been less than 2 years since you started Simracing Center, and I imagine that it's probably difficult to work out if it feels like that's been forever or has absolutely flown by. But what's been your proudest moment since starting Simracing Center?
I feel like it was a very proud moment for me when I went to the Formula One arcade and got recognized for are you that guy from Simracing Center? that was a moment where I went, oh damn, that's pretty cool. But for me, there's been just a lot of little proud moments, milestones and all of that. We had like a sales target for the first year, and we reached it. It was like gonna be very close, and we reached it. So that was like a very like big celebration moment. But just it's such a proud feeling to have a team of almost 30 people now, and that I can provide income for those people doing what they love. And that's something that when I started it was the dream, basically, where I could have my friends work for me doing what they love and getting paid for doing what they love, playing the Formula One game, basically. So that's something that makes me super proud and happy, that I can help those guys out financially while they literally play the Formula One game. So that is also a very proud moment. And also what makes me very proud is getting DMs from people, seeing the reviews that are posted on the website, seeing reviews posted in the Discord channels. We got so much positive reviews. It feels so amazing. Like the reward of it is it just feels so good, because we all work really hard, and seeing people being positive about it is just such an incredible feeling. Really rewards and shows that what we've been working so hard towards is paying off and is making people genuinely enjoying the game more feels so incredibly good. And also, what I really like is meeting people from the sim racing space, creators, people from the community. I love meeting them. I'm going to London this weekend, meeting more creators. That's stuff that I really love to do.
Yeah, I mean, it is absolutely nuts that we live in a world now where you can make a living by doing something you genuinely enjoy. Like, having a job that you enjoy is a privilege, and very few people get to do it. So I would agree with you that being in a position where you can create jobs and livelihoods based on something that people are really genuinely passionate about is an incredible feeling.
It feels amazing. It's
so
amazing.
Final question, because we're short for time now, but what's next? What's on the horizon? What should people be looking out for with Simracing Center?
So as mentioned previously, iRacing and ACC are going to be built up. That's our big projects coming up. Maybe some cool stuff with Grid Finder. Who knows? And basically, we're going to be expanding on every single thing we can expand on. We're working really hard behind the scenes to really work hard to get every single thing, every single procedure that we have, like optimized to perfection. And one thing to look out for, I'd say, is our brand new website that's coming up.
Exciting.
With a customer area within the website, where scheduling coaching sessions going to be super easy. Access to your setups and race preps is going to be super easy. Booking an engineer is going to be super easy, and it's going to be super nice with a system with accounts where it's going to be very easy for you to have your account and then transfer over certain things. It's a
global domination is what I'm hearing.
Exactly.
Well, Jorrit, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. It's been absolutely fascinating, and it's been great to kind of watch this journey as well as you've been growing it out. And yeah, like you say, looking forward to some exciting projects with little old Grid Finder. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I really did. Thank you, Jorrit, for spending the time to talk to me today and go through your journey as a startup founder in sim racing. I found your story fascinating about how you're having to grow out these teams and how you're kind of making these decisions about which sim titles are more scalable than others, which ones require more intensive labor when it comes to creating these setups. And I also really liked hearing about your reasoning for your pricing approach, which is a tricky one. Working out how much to charge your customers is always a difficult one for an early founder. So thank you, Jorrit. Really appreciate the chat. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thanks to our sponsors, as always, and we'll see you next week.